I undertook the mission of a princess, journeying to Beiyan for a political marriage. It was not until 5 years later, when the formidable army of Nanchu breached the capital of Yen, that I was granted the opportunity to return to my homeland. To my dismay, I discovered that a doppelganger had usurped my life. My parents had become hers, my home was now hers, and even the childhood betrothed, once dear to me, had surrendered his affections to her. She had ascended the ranks, enjoying the privileges of the palace, esteemed by nobility, all due to my sacrifice in representing the princess. Upon my return, she had the audacity to poison my tea. Enduring excruciating internal torment, I witnessed her lurking behind my betrothed, stifling her laughter. In a fit of rage, I seized a guard's blade and struck at them mercilessly. Let none survive. May we all descend into the depths of hell together. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself transported back to the fateful day when the Nanchu army stormed the capital of Yen. 1. I pressed the blade against the neck of the Emperor of Beiyan, awaiting the advance of the Southern Shu army into the Taiji Hall. Under their astonished gazes, I raised my brows and declared, "General, you have kept this humble palace waiting for far too long. This lowly general awaits the princess's return to court with utmost reverence." Capturing the Emperor of Beiyan alive, my merits surpassed those of my previous life. Thus, upon returning to Southern Shu, the Emperor himself led the civil and military officials out of the city to welcome me, both the Triumphant army and the Princess Chongning, who was engaged in a diplomatic marriage. 5 years prior, the Emperor, reluctant to part with his own daughter, had contemplated selecting a girl from among his ministers' families. My father, in pursuit of wealth and status, offered me up. The Emperor acknowledged me as his adoptive daughter and conferred upon me the title of Chongning. I bowed gracefully and proclaimed, "Father, your daughter has not failed in her duty, assisting the general in annihilating Beiyan and capturing the deposed emperor alive." The Emperor, visibly pleased, remarked, "Good child, your contributions are unparalleled." That was precisely the affirmation I sought. Henceforth, no one could deny that I was a benefactor of Southern Shu. That evening, a banquet was held in the palace to celebrate my return alongside the soldiers. I sat beside the Emperor and Empress at the table, my place positioned at the forefront of the princesses. I aimed to make it abundantly clear that I was not a discarded pawn. The torment and humiliation I endured in Beiyan had now transformed into my accolades upon returning to Southern Shu. Anyone daring to belittle me or insult me would truly be committing a grave sin. My gaze swept over the high-ranking officials and their families, locking onto Song Fengli's eyes. Her visage, strikingly similar to mine, bore a gentle curve that exuded myriad charms. She appeared harmless, yet she was the very one who had poisoned me in my former life. 2. During the banquet, the Emperor affectionately inquired, "Chongning, your marriage for the sake of the state has brought great merit. What reward do you seek?" I responded with poise, "Your Majesty, I humbly request a residence so that I may live in comfort henceforth." Those with discerning ears could discern the underlying implication of my parents' lack of affection towards me. Many curious glances fell upon my parents, making them squirm uncomfortably. This was their just recompense. Moreover, this was merely the beginning. In my previous life, after my safe return, they scorned me for having been the woman of the deposed Emperor of Beiyan, even wishing for me to end my life to prove my resolve. Song Fengli had repeatedly schemed against me, and their inability to see through her clumsy machinations was far from innocent. Upon closer examination, they were not blameless at all. The Emperor cast a heavy glance at my father before smiling at me and granting my request. I permitted. I knelt in gratitude. The Empress then suggested, "Chongning is now 15, at the prime of her youth. Perhaps the Emperor might consider arranging a marriage for her." The Emperor nodded thoughtfully and turned to me. "What are your thoughts, Chongning?" My gaze roamed the assembly until it landed on Meng Huaqing, who quickly lowered his head and averted his gaze, as if fearing I would see him and insist on marrying him. We had known each other since childhood, having been childhood sweethearts. But our engagement had been annulled due to the diplomatic marriage. He had fallen for another girl, which I could accept and understand. However, he had the audacity to fall for that substitute, shielding and indulging her as she repeatedly conspired against me. Even knowing she had poisoned me, he still kept her close, watching as I writhed in agony from the poison's effects. The excruciating sensation, as if my very insides were aflame, still haunts me, bringing me to the brink of suffocation when recalled. 3. I inhaled deeply and replied slowly, upon my return to my homeland. I wish to rest for a while before discussing further matters. The emperor acquiesced, and this topic was temporarily set aside. It was evident that many in attendance breathed a sigh of relief. Princess Zhaoning, seated beside me, remained silent until the banquet concluded, trailing behind me as I emerged. Like in our childhood, she timidly called out, "Sister Xiangyi." It was Shun Xiangyi, not Princess Chongming. 5 years ago, she had been the one destined for marriage. Her birth mother, concubine Liu, had knelt outside the imperial study for 2 hours to persuade the emperor to rescind the decree. Ultimately, I had become the one to fulfill the diplomatic marriage. Zhaoning lowered her head and murmured, "I am sorry." Watching her bowing figure, I narrowed my eyes slightly. I harbored resentment towards her for enjoying the privileges of a princess while shirking the responsibilities that came with it. Otherwise, I would not have been sacrificed. Yet, compared to my resentment towards her, my hatred for my biological parents was far greater. They had forsaken me for wealth and status, even going so far as to orchestrate a substitute to torment me, leading to my demise. Sister Xiangyi, I know it was my selfishness and cowardice that caused you to be married off. I do not seek your forgiveness. I merely wish to do something for you. I fixed my gaze upon her. What can you do? She hesitated for a moment before resolutely stating anything. I replied with a simple good. Zhaoning's face lit up with joy, her excitement palpable as she looked at me. I forced a smile, though it did not reach my eyes. Her guilt had led her to support Song Fengli, allowing an enigmatic newcomer to bask in the limelight among the noble ladies of the capital. Now, I was eager to see how Song Fengli would maintain her favored status. For, at the palace gate, the Shin family awaited my arrival. My father wore a stern expression while my mother and Song Fengli sat in the carriage. Upon my approach, they not only refrained from stepping forward to greet me, but also exuded an air of reproach. The palace maid Rongyue, gifted by the empress, announced loudly, "The princess has returned. The Shin family must perform half a bow." My father stared at me in disbelief, but upon witnessing the entourage behind me, he had no choice but to bend slightly in respect. Hearing my father's voice, my mother and Song Fengli hurriedly descended from the carriage to salute me. As they struggled to contain their anger, I let out a soft scoff and stepped into the most lavish carriage of the Shin family. Song Fengli attempted to assist my mother in boarding. However, Rongyue blocked her path, stating, "The princess is in the carriage. Madame Shen and Miss Song shall take another." The faces of the Shen family turned ashen. I relished seeing their frustration at my rise, knowing they had no choice but to submit. By this reckoning, it had been 5 years since I last set foot in the Shun residence. This place had once been my home, yet now, the courtyard I had meticulously arranged had become Song Fengli's domain. My home had turned into hers. In my previous life, my mother had claimed to have prepared another courtyard for me. For 5 years, I had pined for my family, and upon hearing my mother's words, I had not pressed to return to my original quarters. This time, I ordered the removal of all of Song Fengli's belongings. Upon witnessing this, she rushed forward to intervene. Accusing me in front of my parents, "Sister desires my courtyard." She could simply say so. How could she throw out my things? This is too tyrannical. I gestured, and a matron approached Song Fengli, delivering 2 resounding slaps. Song Fengli burst into tears, her sorrowful countenance a sight to behold. Thus, I resolved to make her weep all the more. A mere glance from me prompted Rongyue to declare, for her disrespect towards the princess, 20 lashes. Consequently, the matron continued her punishment. My parents were frantic, pointing at me, yet their anger was stifled, and they eventually lowered their hands, unable to utter a single word. I cast them a light glance before retreating indoors to rest. 5. Before dawn I awoke. For 5 years, I had served the emperor of Beiyan like a slave, rising early to prepare congee and brew tea for him. If I failed to attend to him personally, I would be sent to serve others. Even though I had been granted a second chance and returned to southern Chu, the scars from my past could not be entirely erased. Nor could the habits I had formed be easily altered. I lay with my eyes wide open, waiting for the sunlight to stream through the window. After finishing my morning ablutions, the maidservant by my mother's side approached with an air of superiority, scolding me for my late rising and neglecting to pay my respects. I lifted my teacup, and Rongyue swiftly dealt a slap to the maid. This maid had always wielded her master's authority like a weapon, accustomed to her arrogance. In my past life, upon my return to the estate, she spread rumors that I was a tarnished woman who ought to take her own life to preserve her honor. To her, my marriage was a disgrace. I was on the verge of punishing her when my biological parents intervened, reproaching me for my cruelty. After being struck, the maid leapt up, exclaiming, "I am the lady's maid." To this, Romue coldly retorted, "I am the chief maid assigned to the princess by Her Majesty the Empress." The mere mention of the Empress drained the color from the maid's face. I ordered her to be bound and taken to the front courtyard for public punishment. My mother and Song Fengli arrived swiftly. The maid, seeing them as her salvation, cried out, "Madam, miss, please save me." My mother, as in my previous life, chastised me. She lamented, "How could I have given birth to such a wretch?" I raised an eyebrow and reminded her, "Were it not for me, would you enjoy such unparalleled wealth and fortune? I was sent to marry for the nation, and even the emperor has declared me a benefactor. How is it that I have become a sinner in your eyes? Do you imply that the emperor is mistaken?" My mother turned pale with fear and hastily denied it. My father finally returned, and I kindly informed him of my mother's disrespect towards the emperor, daring to claim he was wrong. He raised his hand and struck her. I gestured for the eunuchs to release her. They immediately began to grapple with one another. This spectacle of dogs biting dogs was rather amusing. I had never witnessed such a scene in my past life. How unfortunate. In my previous life, I had been too concerned with family ties, allowing them to trample over me. This time, out of sheer benevolence, I decided to have the matron enlighten them on proper decorum. I am a princess. In the Shun household, it is not I who must pay respects, but they who ought to bow before me. In the afternoon, Meng Huaqing came to seek me out. He expressed deep concern for me, wishing to rekindle our past romance. I casually inspected my nails and asked, "What about Song Fengli?" He earnestly replied, "Xiangyi, she resembles you too closely. For 5 years, I have missed you every moment, finding solace only in her presence, which slightly alleviated my yearning. In my heart, it has always been you. Now that you have returned, how could I think of anyone else?" Did he not find this contradictory? But it mattered little. The crux of the matter was that he had the audacity to employ the charms of a handsome man. Such a significant sacrifice surely concealed substantial motives. According to my previous way of thinking, I should have feigned politeness to discern his true intentions. However, I found him utterly revolting. I arched my brow and coldly scoffed. "Shameless wretch, how dare you covet this princess? Guards, take him to the Ministry of Rights." Would I grant him a favorable countenance? That would be a waste of my second chance at life. The guards escorted Meng Huaqing to the Ministry of Rights. I instructed Romue to accompany him and explain the situation to the minister. Along the way, no one could stop us. My parents and Meng Huaqing's parents all came to plead on his behalf, but I remained impervious to their entreaties. I would rather remain in silence than engage with them. After being reprimanded by the minister, Meng Huaqing was released. I had not expected him to be confined for long. It was merely a preliminary measure to tarnish his reputation. I was curious to see how he would maintain his facade of a dignified gentleman afterward. A few days later, rumors began to circulate in the capital. It was said that during my time in Beiyan, I had danced naked for men, my lips tasted by countless others, and had experienced multiple miscarriages. Regardless of who instigated these slanders, I marched directly into the palace and wept profusely before the emperor and empress. As the emperor's adopted daughter, I bore the title of princess, having married into a rival nation and captured its emperor alive. The emperor himself praised my contributions. Such rumors were an affront to his honor. Moreover, they underscored the sacrifices I had made for Nanzhou, having endured endless hardships in Beiyan. I deserved adequate recompense. Therefore, how could these rumors harm me? Indeed, had I been fragile and concerned about a woman's reputation, I might have considered ending my life. But I had merely fulfilled my duty as a diplomat. I am a benefactor. I should be honored by the Nanzhou court and revered by the people. The emperor rewarded me with gold, silver, jewels, and exquisite silks. His grace was boundless. As I exited the palace, I was surrounded by a chorus of flattery. Even my father, upon seeing me, averted his gaze and retreated. I stood tall, my demeanor proud. Even if those rumors were true, what of it? The ones who should feel shame are those incompetent individuals hiding behind women. Within a couple of days, the Ministry of Justice uncovered the source of the rumors. Meng Huaqing confessed to orchestrating them in a bid for retribution, aiming to ruin my reputation. He was dismissed from his post, and his father received a stern reprimand from the emperor, penalized with a year's salary forfeiture. The princess's residence was completed, and I chose an auspicious day to move in. Gifts poured in to celebrate my housewarming. I hosted a banquet to express my gratitude. The guests were numerous, and the atmosphere was lively. My parents and that substitute also attended. My mother approached me, cleared her throat, and said, "Xiangyi, my dear, with so many nobles present, how could you sit in the main seat alone?" I narrowed my eyes and regarded her coldly. Yet she, emboldened by her maternal status, failed to perceive the disapproval in others' gazes and insisted on putting on a show before me. I coldly laughed and asked, "What did you say 5 years ago when father sent me to marry?" My mother's eyes darted, glancing around nervously, unconsciously taking a step back. In front of the crowd, I was unperturbed about helping her to recollect. "You said that you and father raised me, and that my sacrifice for the Shun family's prosperity would suffice as gratitude for my upbringing. From then on, you would treat me as though I no longer existed. You even claimed that I harbored malicious thoughts, and that your greatest regret was not having killed me at birth." Gasps rippled through the crowd, and whispers filled the air. Furthermore, regardless of what others might say behind my back, I am the emperor's adopted daughter, Princess Chongning. Those who slander me commit an act of great disrespect. My mother's expression faltered, her embarrassment evident as she wanted to unleash her anger at me, yet dared not, ultimately retreating in defeat. My father, lurking in the background, not only refrained from comforting her but also urged her to behave, attempting to present himself as the epitome of reason. In truth, he was merely contemptible. Song Fengli approached Jiaoning, affectionately saying, "Princess, it has been a while since we last met. I have learned to make a couple of new Jiangnan delicacies and would like you to taste them." She intended to solidify her position through Jiaoning. 5 years is a long time, long enough for Song Fengli to forget her identity and the fact that her place among the royal kin was due to someone else's favor. Jiaoning did not respond kindly, coldly retorting, "If you wish to work in the imperial kitchen, you may inquire among the noble lords present who might be willing to recommend you." Song Fengli was momentarily taken aback, then lowered her gaze, a teardrop forming at the corner of her eye, appearing more pitiful and delicate than ever, eliciting a sense of sympathy from me. However, I was least inclined to pity the fragile. I smirked openly, unabashedly mocking her. Then I picked up a peeled orange from the table, split it in half, and offered it to Jiaoning, saying, "Jiaoning, I cannot finish this. I shall share half with you." Jiaoning's eyes instantly sparkled as she hurried over, sweetly exclaiming, "Thank you, Sister Xiangyi." I relished the sight of Song Fengli's pale countenance. I curved my lips in satisfaction, allowing Jiaoning to sit beside me. She sat down in astonishment. The demeanor of Zhao Ning spoke volumes. I intend to make it abundantly clear to all that I have returned, and that no mere commoner can usurp my rightful place. Who will continue to shower favors upon Song Fengli, eager to present her with a life of wealth and privilege. As Song Fengli resumed her seat, the jovial conversations she had shared with others fell abruptly silent. My mother grasped my hand, speaking in hushed tones, her expressions shifting between pity and indignation. It is truly laughable to consider. I have endured countless hardships, while they luxuriate in the affluence I have procured for them. Yet, instead of expressing gratitude, they wish for my demise. Does such a notion exist in this world? I cannot help but question, am I truly their biological daughter? It appears as though Song Fengli is the one who belongs to them, and I am but a foundling. Song Fengli has once again ascended to lofty heights. Among her cadre of admirers, a fourth prince has joined the ranks. She danced before me, falsely accusing me of pushing her into the water. In response, I felt compelled to ensure her claims were substantiated. Armed with a firewood stick, I held her down in the water, insisting she swallow a few mouthfuls. She threatened me. "Xin Xiangyi, if you dare treat me this way, the fourth prince will not let you off lightly." Yet, alas, I am one unafraid of peril, even barefoot. Each time she surfaced, I pushed her down again. I smirked. "Aren't you curious as to why the fourth prince has yet to come to your rescue?" With a look of fury akin to a spent bow, she glared at me. I magnanimously revealed, because he is currently busy flirting with a beauty. At last, Fear flickered across Song Fengli's face as she cried out for help. The one who came to her aid was Meng Huaqing. Fully aware of her entanglement with the fourth prince, he still sheltered her, pulling her ashore with a face full of concern, draping his outer robe around her. He lamented to me, "Xiangyi, we have been childhood sweethearts. Why direct your grievances towards me? Do not harm others. Very well, you may first take your leave." I readily raised the firewood stick and struck down with fervor. Meng Huaqing remained silent under the blows. Song Fengli trembled, tears streaming down her face. Their suffering brought me joy until the general seized the firewood stick, tossing it aside. A glimmer of triumph flashed in Meng Huaqing's eyes. No wonder he refrained from retaliating. He was merely biding his time here. But would I be intimidated? 5 years ago, after a defeat in battle, the general personally led a retinue to escort me to Beiyan for a political marriage. At the border between our two nations, I uttered but a single phrase to him. To ensure the safety of the realm, what use do I have for a general? The valiant general's eyes reddened as he knelt before me, solemnly vowing to restore his honor and bring me back to Chu. 5 years later, he fulfilled his promise, leading his army to triumph over Beiyan. Upon returning to court, the general treated me with utmost care. I began to understand that he possessed a strong sense of justice, a heavy sense of responsibility, and was particularly old-fashioned. The general had long attributed the previous defeat and marriage to his own shortcomings, thus feeling a sense of guilt towards me. Song Fengli expressed her gratitude to the general, presenting herself as a pitiful figure. Meng Huaqing, enduring immense pain, also offered thanks. Together, they resembled a pair of star-crossed lovers. In contrast, I remained haughty and ruthless. The general sighed, shaking his head, before instructing Meng Huaqing and Song Fengli to depart. Once they had left, he bowed to me and said, "Your Highness, I have 2 sons. The elder has achieved multiple military successes and currently holds the position of guerrilla general, while the younger has also made notable progress and is beginning to take on responsibilities. Both are of marriageable age and remain unwed." I was taken aback for a moment before bursting into laughter. The general wishes to offer me one of his sons as a means of redemption. Raising an eyebrow, I replied, "It is stipulated that a prince consort should not hold real power in this dynasty." The devoted general countered, "To gallop across the battlefield and vanquish foes is indeed exhilarating and honorable, yet it also entails risking one's life. If my son were fortunate enough to marry you, he would no longer need to face the rigors of battle or endure the harsh frontiers. He could remain in the capital, living a life of leisure and luxury as a prince consort. What could be more desirable?" I gazed intently at him, but his sincerity and earnestness left me unable to detect a single flaw. He is a general of great renown, and the past defeat and marriage cannot be solely blamed on him. It was a result of the internal strife within the southern Chu court, leading to the fragmentation of forces. On the contrary, it is his skill that has allowed him to rally his troops and conquer Beiyan. He has welcomed me back to Chu, deserving of both merit and gratitude. He stands as the steadfast protector of the nation, a hero in the hearts of the people. In this new life, I yearn to confront everyone, even the dogs that pass by, with harsh words. Yet before the general, I do not wish to make things difficult for him. Taking a deep breath, I stated, "It was Song Fengli who jumped into the water herself. She sought to frame me, and I merely ensured her accusations were substantiated. She has climbed onto the fourth prince's favor, and had I not intervened, she would have succeeded. If the fourth prince were to turn against me, I would find myself in a precarious situation." The general remained silent, still believing me to be in the wrong. I lowered my gaze and turned to leave, only to hear him remark, "Your Highness should not resort to direct action. It is sufficient to give orders." I paused in my tracks, involuntarily curling my lips into a smile. I stand corrected. When I entered the palace to pay my respects, I encountered the fourth prince's consort in the queen's chambers. We had crossed paths a few times at palace banquets and among the noble families, so we were not entirely strangers. As I knelt before the queen, the fourth prince's consort followed suit, seemingly eager to speak with me privately. She caught up to me, instructing her attendants to maintain their distance. Then, as if delivering news, she said, "Chongning, the fourth prince wishes to petition for permission to take Song Fengli as a secondary consort. It is likely she will become a thorn in your side." I opened my mouth to respond. "Miss Song is charming and delightful. His Highness is fortunate." The fourth prince's consort was momentarily rendered speechless. After a pause, she regained her composure and remarked, "We both know what sort of person Song Fengli is. If she becomes the prince's secondary consort, you will find it far more challenging to deal with her." I remained undeterred. As a princess engaged in a political marriage, what can she do to me? At most, I can simply shut my door and live my own life. Chongning, she urged, please consider helping me. Song Fengli must not enter the prince's residence. Finally, she displayed the appropriate demeanor for someone seeking assistance. No one should expect to use me as a pawn without consequence. I replied slowly, as far as I know, the fourth prince already has a secondary consort, along with several concubines. Why does the fourth prince's consort specifically object to Song Fengli? The fourth prince's consort linked her arm through mine, leaning in to whisper, earlier this year, at Zhao Ning's birthday banquet, I witnessed her in a compromising situation with the second prince. I turned my head slightly, scrutinizing her. She continued, the entire capital believes that Meng Huaqing views her as your substitute. They're seen as a pair. Their secret affair with the second prince is so well concealed that I cannot help but question her motives for approaching the fourth prince. I had been away for 5 years. Song Fengli had emerged only after my departure. In my previous life, I had investigated her, and her past was as pristine as a blank slate. Yet, she excels in all arts and possesses knowledge of court etiquette. Either she is a prodigy, learning everything effortlessly, or she is a spy. I excused myself from the fourth prince's consort and returned to the palace to meet the emperor, seeking an edict to see the Marquis of Anil, the deposed emperor of Beiyan. After he was taken into the capital of Chu, the emperor refrained from executing him immediately to pacify the hearts of the subjects of Beiyan. Instead, he conferred upon him the title of Marquis Anil and placed him under house arrest in the Maple Bridge Villa. Upon presenting my token, the imperial guards responsible for watching the villa allowed me entry. I beheld the deposed emperor squinting in the sunlight, reclining comfortably in a chair beneath a tree. With a cold smile, I remarked, it seems that after our prolonged separation, Marquis Anil has lost quite a bit of weight. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, fixating on me. Before reciprocating with a similar cold smile, the princess appears to have gained considerable plumpness. With leisurely days spent sleeping until noon, with food served at my beck and call, and no one to attend to, such a life is indeed indulgent. He gazed at me intently, remaining silent. I continued, allow me to share some good news, my lord. The people of Yen are living in peace and prosperity, all singing praises of the current emperor's diligence and benevolence, crafting plays to denounce the former deposed emperor of Beiyan's debauchery and tyranny. I emphasized the term deposed emperor with particular weight. His gaze turned icy as it bore into me. I smiled sweetly, intent on provoking him further. He spoke earnestly. You haven't come merely to exchange such trivial pleasantries, have you? Of course not. I fabricated a lie. As a married couple, we share a bond of 100 days. I naturally think of you, my lord, and have come to pay a visit. He narrowed his eyes slightly, then suddenly chuckled. I have always been unable to discern which of your words are true and which are false. I replied, a single truth from you could earn a truth from me. He regarded me with a knowing look. So this is your true intention. I did not deny it, instead inquiring, how many spies have you arranged in South Chu? He replied, so many that I have lost count. However, you need not worry. Once Yen is no more, they will simply be ordinary citizens. I pondered the credibility of his words. He then asked, in the past 5 years, have you experienced even a moment of happiness? I truthfully answered, none. He seemed wounded. You truly have come to please me. You are deceiving me. During my time in Beiyan, I forced myself to learn the art of disguise within a single night, transforming from a mere outlet for frustration into an eloquent conversationalist. If I could not serve him well and amuse him, I would face consequences beyond my endurance. The mere thought of my days in Beiyan filled me with an urge to kill him. Yet he said, the moment you entered the Taiji Hall, I suspected what you intended. With the nation in ruins and my family destroyed, I am willing to assist you before my demise. He spoke as if he were sincere. Unfortunately, I am no naive girl, having endured abandonment by my family and a death followed by rebirth. His words could not deceive me. Moreover, in my past life, he had escaped, shot down by arrows outside the Taiji Hall. In this life, he had no chance to flee. He ought to be grateful to me. I pressed on. Do you recall a woman resembling me who was also a spy? He stared at me blankly for a moment before laughing. If she were similar to you, I certainly would not have sent her to be a spy. I laughed as well, moving behind him and placing my hands around his neck, applying slight pressure. Do you dare to kill me? He remained still. But I had observed him for 5 years and could detect not only anger in his voice but also a hint of panic. I chuckled and released my grip. You do not dare. I merely wished to frighten him, for he had once relished scaring me. He had said that if I were disobedient or unruly, he would send me to the military camp. He also claimed he would execute all my attendants who came with me to the marriage alliance, burdening me with their lives and branding me a criminal. The roles had been amusingly reversed. Now I pondered how many days he could still live. If Song Fengli was implicated with the two princes, proving her to be a spy would ensure her demise at the emperor's hands. Beiyan had fallen, and I was the Princess Chongning, married to Beiyan for 5 years. Was it truly difficult to prove someone a spy of Beiyan? Certainly not. After leaving the Maple Bridge Villa, I detoured to the Dali Temple before returning to the princess's residence. The eunuch reported that the second prince's consort had sent an invitation for me to attend a flower viewing banquet. I gladly accepted the invitation. With the emperor's prolonged indecision on succession, the most competitive contenders were the first and second princes. My primary objective was to ascertain whether Song Fengli was connected to the second prince and whether the fourth prince's consort's claims held any truth. Upon my arrival, the fourth prince's consort was already present, engaged in jovial conversation with the second prince's consort, both appearing as harmonious sisters-in-law. The second prince's consort welcomed me with a smiling face, showering me with compliments for being a delightful lunatic. Just as we were exchanging pleasantries, Song Fengli arrived, causing both the fourth prince's consort and me to change our expressions. After all, in everyone's eyes, she was our rival. I scoffed, Miss Song. Where is your Meng Huaqing? Song Fengli feigned indignation, saying, Princess, you misunderstand. In the past, Mr. Meng showed me kindness out of pity, especially for your sake. Perhaps emboldened by her newfound support or feeling that her ambitions were within reach, she grew bolder. She then remarked, the princess and Mr. Meng have known each other since childhood, sharing a deep bond. If there are misunderstandings, they should be resolved promptly. This provoked a hearty laugh from me. I discreetly surveyed the room. Most were merely enjoying the spectacle, while only Zhao Ning and the fourth prince's consort showed signs of concern and anger. With the second prince's consort observing us closely, the fourth prince's consort coldly retorted, Princess Chongning holds a noble title. How could someone like Meng Huaqing dare to aspire to her? Miss Song, in making such statements, you demean not only Princess Chongning but also the emperor, the empress, and the entire royal family. With such a weighty accusation, Song Fengli hurriedly apologized, retreating to the side in embarrassment. I exchanged a knowing glance with her and the fourth prince's consort. They were soon to share a husband, and for the sake of the fourth prince, they could either be rivals or allies. The fourth prince's consort extended her olive branch just perfectly, yet I could not accept it lightly. Nor was it necessary. I waved to Zhao Ning, opting to converse with my kind-hearted sister instead. During the banquet, a young maidservant accidentally spilled tea on my dress while serving. I struggled to suppress my laughter. Such clumsy tactics seemed aimed at making me unaware of the underlying schemes, did they not? The second prince's consort admonished the maidservant and apologized to me, instructing her personal attendant to escort me to a private chamber to change my attire. Zhao Ning looked at me anxiously. Sister Xiangyi, are you burned? I smiled at her. It was warm water, not hot. Zhao Ning sighed in relief. I said to her, Zhao Ning, you should accompany me. Of course. Zhao Ning readily agreed, unaware of any ulterior motives. However, the fourth prince's consort remarked, I was just about to ask Zhao Ning to play some leaf cards. You two hurry back. Had it not been for that last remark, I would have assumed she harbored no ill intentions. The maidservant led us to the private chamber, where she presented the clothing to Romue with respect, saying, Please change. Your Highness, I will guard the door. Zhao Ning scratched her head in confusion. Sister Xiangyi, I will wait for you behind the screen. I chuckled. A few drops of water will dry in no time with a breeze. Oh. I made a gesture for silence, signaling her to quietly come to the window with me. There, in the distance, a figure was waiting. From the silhouette, it was undoubtedly a man. Cao Ning, though kind-hearted and naive, had grown up in the palace, Upon witnessing such a scene and recalling the earlier details, it was not difficult to speculate. Someone knocked on the door. The second prince's consort is worried about the princess catching cold and has sent a maidservant with a bowl of ginger soup. Rongyue opened the door. It was another maidservant from the second prince's consort side. In front of the maidservant, I took a couple of sips from the bowl before casually placing it on the table. The maidservant then said, "Princess Zhao Ning, the fourth prince's consort has inquired about you twice." I feigned a dazed expression, gently placing a hand on my head, and said, "Zhao Ning, please go and accompany the empresses. I shall rest a while before joining you." Zhao Ning followed the maid out. Before long, a throng of people came to seek me out. Indescribable sounds emanated from the side chamber. The fourth prince's consort inquired, "Has Changning been in the side chamber all this time?" The second prince's consort remarked, "It cannot be Changning. Let us keep our distance." The crowd buzzed with speculation. This woman has been married to Bai Yan for 5 years. Having long lost her sense of propriety and shame, she has shown no filial piety to her biological parents. There must be some truth to the rumors that have circulated. Who knows? She's not truly a princess. After such a scandal, I wonder how she will have the audacity to present herself as a princess in the future? Behind them, Zhao Ning's eyes reddened, her fury surpassing mine. I advised her to remain calm, then smiled and called out, "I just want to find you all and wondered where you had disappeared to. Turns out you were here." The crowd turned in unison, gazing at me in disbelief. The sounds from the side chamber continued unabated. The two consorts exchanged glances, their expressions shifting dramatically, before they abruptly pushed the door open and rushed inside. Truly, they were sisters-in-law, their expressions and actions perfectly synchronized. A piercing scream soon erupted from within. The second prince's maid stood at the entrance, blocking others from entering. However, those at the forefront caught a glimpse. Inside the side chamber, entwined in an illicit embrace, were the second prince and Song Fengli. This entire scheme had been orchestrated by many. Song Fengli had long been in collusion with the second prince. She had bribed the second prince's personal maid through one of the second prince's servants. Her intent was to maneuver me into the fourth prince's bed during the second prince's banquet. Yet, both consorts were not to be trifled with. They were well aware of this plan. The second prince's consort sought to turn the tables, aiming to eliminate Song Fengli using my hand. The bowl of ginger soup sent by another maid contained ingredients that would enhance the effects of the aphrodisiac in the side chamber. Should I fall for it, I would undoubtedly eliminate Song Fengli. Though I had no intention of sparing her, the second prince's consort was unaware and sought to give me a nudge from behind. The fourth prince's consort also wished to dispose of Song Fengli. After the maid splashed water on me, she deliberately warned me of a ruse, waiting for me to bring Song Fengli over so she could devise a scheme to replace the fourth prince with the second prince. After I finished speaking, Zhao Ning fell silent for a moment before inquiring, "Sister Xiangyi, is your health all right?" I lower my gaze slightly, replying, "I have inhaled that aphrodisiac countless times in the Beiyan Imperial Palace. The faint scent in the side chamber would hardly be sufficient to arouse any passion, much less harm my health. The true potency lies in that bowl of ginger soup." I pretended to sip a few mouthfuls, pouring the remainder into Song Fengli's mouth. The second prince's consort emerged from the side chamber, instructing everyone to disperse. When she looked at me, a fierce glint flashed in her eyes. I raised my brows and smiled charmingly. My intention was to appear refreshed while causing others to fume with indignation. The second prince sought imperial approval, granting Song Fengli the title of concubine. I must admit, she possessed a remarkable knack for manipulating men. She was also set to depart from the Shun residence. My parents formally recognized her as an adopted daughter, preparing a dowry for her marriage. My mother sent a respectable stewardess from the household to invite me over. I dispatched someone to inquire at the Dali Temple. Then, I cheerfully made my way to the Shun residence. Song Fengli arrogantly confronted me, saying, "Shen Xiangyi, you schemed against me, turning me into the second prince's concubine. I ought to thank you. One day, I shall trample you underfoot, and everyone will know that I am Song Fengli, while you are merely a pale imitation." I chuckled lightly. "So it is this that troubles you. Then from the very beginning, do not exploit my identity and achievements. Be true to yourself. It's quite amusing to see you play both roles." She retorted sharply. "You are a pawn in a marriage alliance, sold to Beiyan. Everyone knows you are a tainted woman, sullied by the Beiyan people. How dare you consider yourself a heroine?" Otherwise, why do you think your biological parents treat me as their own, yet regard you with indifference? Your very existence is their blemish. I struck her across the face. Rongyue immediately stepped forward to wipe my hands, even fanning me unconsciously. How dare you hit me? Song Fongli clasped half her face, trembling with rage. Of course, I dared. I struck her again, ensuring her cheeks matched in symmetry. With half-closed eyes, I declared, "This palace has rendered service to the great Chu, as the emperor himself has acknowledged. If you dare claim the emperor is mistaken, it would be a grave insult. I fear even the second prince would not tolerate you." My marriage alliance was indeed a service to the nation, explicitly recognized by the current emperor. Anyone who sought to undermine me would be challenging the emperor's words. A marriage alliance, a service, no offense committed. No one could wield this matter against me. Song Fongli glared at me through gritted teeth. "Shenxiangyi, you cannot bask in glory for long." I scoffed repeatedly. "And how long do you think you can revel in yours? Don't forget, you haven't even crossed the threshold of the second prince's residence. Even if you do, what then?" She glared at me with malice, being urged out by the matchmaker. I stood in the corridor, glancing at the many guests arriving. My parents were beaming with joy. Rongyue cleared her throat, as if facing a formidable foe. It was then that I noticed Meng Huaqing had silently approached us. He stood beside me, observing the festive scene with a sigh. "When you were sent to Beiyan, I dared not see you off. And now, as she departs, I cannot either. While I was powerless during your time in Beiyan, now that the second prince's residence is but a stone's throw away, I can quietly protect her." I smiled instead of fuming. "Do not approach me with your petty schemes." Furthermore, he could not protect Song Fongli. I had already heard the sound of hurried footsteps. When it came to the second prince, the emperor would first safeguard his son and the royal family's reputation, ensuring that Song Fongli would not implicate him. Thus, the Dali temple would arrive before Song Fongli could leave and take her away. Song Fongli shouted, "I am the second prince's concubine. Who dares?" The head of the Dali temple personally intervened. "By order of the emperor, we are here to take you away." All the guests at the wedding bore witness to the bride's arrest. My parents and Meng Huaqing were also taken away before the public eye. Someone approached me, asking, "Princess, what is happening?" I shrugged. Perhaps the prospective concubine has committed an offense. My parents and Meng Huaqing have been too closely associated with her, and it is only natural for the Dali temple to summon them for questioning. I trust that the Dali temple will uncover the truth. The efficiency of the Dali temple was remarkably high. I provided merely a few half-truths, yet they managed to unravel a wealth of information. Song Fongli was indeed an agent of Beiyan. She had come to the second prince's side, and upon seeing her beauty, he introduced her to Meng Huaqing. Thus, Song Fongli took up residence in the Shun household, gradually replacing me. She exploited her resemblance to me to garner Zhaoning's sympathy, leveraging Zhaoning's guilt towards me to become a favored guest among the nobility, stealing many secrets. However, in the face of absolute power, any schemes would prove futile. The situation on the battlefield was ever-changing, and the general's decisions were contingent upon the circumstances at hand. No matter how much information Song Fongli acquired, she could not alter the grand scheme. She eliminated all those who knew her true identity as a Beiyan agent, effectively becoming the second prince's confidant. Upon my return to court, I ensured that everyone recognized Song Fongli could not replace me. Her face, so similar to mine, would hold no sway. The second prince's intention to place her beside the fourth prince was the catalyst for subsequent events. Days later, an envoy from the Dali temple informed me that Song Fongli had died in prison, while my parents and Meng Huaqing could not be released for the time being. I instructed the messenger to convey that, according to the laws of the Great Chu, I would not interfere. In the end, the emperor would render his judgment. In a bid to safeguard the second prince, all blame was cast upon the espionage agent, Song Fongli. My father was dismissed from his official position, and Meng Huaqing's prospects were irrevocably shattered, yet they both emerged unscathed. My parents came to the gates of the princess's residence daily, beseeching my forgiveness. Seizing a moment when the throngs were gathered at the gate, I raised my voice, declaring, "You claim to be my parents, yet you would betray me for personal gain. For the greater good of Dechu, I would willingly enter into a marriage alliance. Yet, after my harrowing return from the brink of death, you would rather see me perish, all the while cherishing that spy as if they were a treasured jewel. Now, burdened by the consequences of your actions. With my father stripped of his position, you finally recall my worth, but where in this world is such fortune to be found? I have perished countless times in Bei Yen. I have repaid the debt of life you once acknowledged. Nevertheless, I am not as heartless as you. I shall send you monthly allowances. As for the manner and the amount, that shall depend on my whims. The onlookers murmured amongst themselves, and eventually, my parents departed. The crown prince and Zhao Ning approached, and I hastily invited them into the residence. My earlier words had been a calculated act, prompted by Zhao Ning's advance notice of the crown prince's presence within the crowd. The crown prince remarked, "Sister Chong Ning, your discernment of affection and enmity, your loyalty to De Chu, fills me with great admiration. Should you require anything in the future, do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you, Your Highness. Upon my return to Chu, all shall be well." With the crown prince's assurance, my spirit soared. After his departure, Zhao Ning informed me of the second prince's demotion to his fief, rendering him and the fourth prince incapable of stirring unrest. I nodded in acknowledgement. Were I not entirely confident, I would not dare to confront a prince. All it takes is to present the incriminating evidence against those two princes. The crown prince, more than anyone, yearns to suppress them. Before long, news arrived from the Maple Bridge retreat. The Marquis of Annal had passed away. The agents he had embedded had dragged the princes into turmoil. How could the emperor possibly spare him? Indeed, he has finally departed this world. As for my brighter days, they are yet to unfold. The end of the tale. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next story.